Hey there, kids. Are you ever heard whispers in the dead of night? Well, I'm guessing you haven't, because you're only ever asleep then. But our story today is about just that, whispers in the dead of night. Come closer, and I'll tell you all about it. It's about a girl named Mina, who one day after school decided to sneak around to the old abandoned library. Now, this wasn't just any building. It was the library of Hilltop Academy, a prestigious school for young ladies, where Mina's mom had once studied. The two-story stone structure was covered with ivy and stood alone in a neglected corner of the school grounds. Over the years, the roof had started to cave in here and there, and the windows had long ago turned into vacant eye sockets. Locals claimed it was haunted, which made it even more intriguing to the adventurous Mina. Now, since no one dared enter the crumbling building after dark, it had become quite overgrown. And so, when the sun set, casting long shadows over the lawn, Mina knew she would have the whole place to herself. She had already looked inside during the day, and knew that every book had been removed, leaving the dusty shelves bare and ready to be explored. So one night when Mina's parents were out celebrating their anniversary, she snuck out of the house and skipped down to the library. Armed with only a flashlight and her wits, she felt like a real explorer entering an uncharted jungle. A shiver ran down her spine as she pushed open the creaky door and stepped inside. Dust motes swirled in the narrow beam of her light, illuminating faded floral wallpaper and a grand staircase spiraling up to the second floor. As she began to make her way further inside, she heard a faint whispering. At first, she thought it must have been the wind, but the sound grew louder until she could hear snippets of conversation carried on by unseen voices. Curious, Mina crept closer to the sound, her flashlight beam dancing around the room until it landed on a bookshelf. There, nestled between two crumbling stone pillars, sat a stack of ancient-looking books. And then Mina heard it again, a chorus of hushed whispers coming from within the books themselves. She took a deep breath and reached out a hand to push the top book open. As the leather cover creaked, the whispers seemed to grow louder, then abruptly stopped. Startled, Mina jumped back, knocking her flashlight to the floor. It tumbled across the dusty floor before landing at the foot of the bookshelf, leaving Mina in total darkness. "Hello," she called out, her voice echoing in the silent room. "Is anyone there?" But the only response was the sound of her own breathing and the beating of her heart. Tentatively, she reached down to pick up her flashlight and brushed away a cobweb that had landed on the lens. As she flicked the switch, the beam cut through the darkness and landed back on the bookshelf. And that's when she saw it, the books. Each one seemed to be glowing faintly, and as she watched, they began to whisper once more. Overwhelmed with a sudden surge of bravery, Mina stepped forward and opened one of the books. As she did, the whispering grew into a loud, excited chatter. Startled, she slammed the book shut and stumbled backward, knocking over a nearby chair. But as she turned to flee, she noticed something strange. The room had changed. In the time she'd been gone, the grand staircase had vanished, replaced by a thick, tangled web. The walls seemed to be closing in on her, and the ceiling was now low and made of rough-hewn wood. Mina's heart raced as she realized she was trapped in the bookshelf, surrounded by whispering books and a giant spider web. She spun around, desperate to find a way out, when suddenly a new sound cut through the noise, a gentle humming. Startled, she turned to the source and gasped. In the corner of the room, a small figure was floating above the ground. It looked like a girl about Mina's age, dressed in a Victorian nightgown. Her hair was a tangled mess, and her face was pale and sad. But what truly caught Mina's attention were the giant wings sprouting from the girl's back. They fluttered weakly, casting dancing shadows on the walls. And as Mina watched, one of them tore, sending the girl plummeting to the ground. "Are you okay?" Mina asked, rushing to the girl's side. The girl looked up, startled, and Mina saw that her eyes were filled with sadness. "I'm sorry," the girl whispered, her voice like the rustling of leaves. "I didn't mean to startle you. What are you?" Mina asked, her voice barely a whisper. The girl hesitated, then spoke. "I'm Lumo, a spirit bound to this place. I've been trapped here for many years, unable to move on." "Why?" Mina asked, her heart filled with compassion. Lumo sighed, her wings drooping. "Because my story was never finished. When I died, my tale was forgotten, and now I'm stuck here forever." At that moment, Mina felt a surge of determination. She would help Lumo finish her story and set her free. "I'll help you," she promised, reaching out a hand. Lumo looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. "You would do that for me?" Mina nodded, and together they began searching for clues to Lumo's lost past. As they delved deeper into the mystery, the library around them began to shift and change. Books fell from the shelves, forming paths and staircases. The furniture danced and swirled, creating mazes and secret passages. And everywhere Mina looked, she saw glimpses of Lumo's former life, frozen in time. Finally, after what felt like hours, Mina came across a small desk, tucked away in a shadowy corner. On it lay a quill and ink bottle, and next to it was a blank scroll. With trembling hands, Mina picked up the quill and dipped it into the ink. Then, taking a deep breath, she began to write. As she wrote, the room around her grew brighter, and Lumo's sad expression slowly transformed into a hopeful smile. With each stroke of the quill, Mina wove together the fragments of Lumo's story, filling in the gaps and bringing the tale to life. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the writing was finished. Mina unrolled the scroll and read aloud. "Once upon a time in a kingdom far, far away, there lived a princess named Lumo. She had beautiful wings that allowed her to soar through the skies and bring joy to all who saw her fly. But one day, while on a journey to a distant land, Lumo stumbled upon a hidden cave filled with magic and wonder. She couldn't resist the urge to explore, and as she ventured deeper inside, she discovered a talking tree who offered her a chance to become even more powerful. All she had to do was drink from a nearby pool of water infused with the tree's magic. But little did Lumo know that the tree had ulterior motives, and the water contained a sleeping curse that would trap her forever. Despite the danger, Lumo couldn't resist the temptation of greater power and drank from the pool without hesitation. And so, she became trapped inside the cave, her wings withered and useless. The talking tree cackled with glee, knowing he had triumphed once again. But Lumo refused to give up. She focused all her remaining strength on breaking the curse, and after many long years, she was finally freed from the cave and returned to her kingdom, a wiser and more humble princess. And so, the people rejoiced and celebrated Lumo's return, and lived happily ever after. As Mina finished the story, the room around her began to fade, and Lumo's form grew brighter. With a grateful smile, Lumo approached Mina and whispered, "Thank you. Now, I can finally move on." And with that, she spread her wings and soared out of the window, disappearing into the night sky. The whispering stopped and the books fell silent. Mina knew that Lumo was finally free, and a sense of peace settled over the room. furniture returned to its original places, and the walls and ceiling disappeared, revealing the familiar sight of the crumbling library. With a heavy heart, Mina left the building, stepping out into the soft glow of the rising sun. As she walked away, she heard a faint whisper on the breeze. "Thank you, Mina. Thank you for helping me find my story." Mina smiled, knowing that Lumo was finally at peace. And as the sun climbed higher in the sky, she skipped off to school, eager to share her exciting adventure with her friends.